it's a good matchup for Rob. I think, Sean's shown that he's very good. Um, he's talented. It's an exciting fight. Obviously, he brings a big name value, and he has a good fan base. And, he's backing up a lot of things that he's saying. So kudos to him. And, hopefully he's getting paid. And, no ill will towards him at all. I think that Rob does match up good against him. I think we're a little bit more well-rounded.
All right, JHK here for the AllStar, and join me right now is the New England Cartel leader. It's not like what you think. You know what I mean? It's something good. It's good in the process. Tyson Chartier, what's going on, man? It's been a while since we've gotten on one of these chats. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It was, I think the last time you had me on, I think it was the UFC was calling me during the interview. It was a live interview, and they were telling me that Williams' opponent had COVID and all this stuff. So I was like, I couldn't say anything, but I had to get off the phone. So I apologize for that. I'm glad to be back on, man.
It's all good, man. That's the fighter or fight team life, man. It's just unpredictable every day. You know what I mean? I guess you're good at that now, right? It's just adapting to the situation as things come along, especially with COVID.
Yeah, it's there's no blueprint on how to handle it, and I think our team motto the whole time has been, let's just focus on what we can control, and we kind of apply that to pretty much every area in life. And I think if you can figure out how to do that, obviously easier said than done. If you can figure out how to do that, it generally leads to like good things happening and, a lot less stress.
Yeah, and you guys got the recipe. Let's kick it off with William Knight, since you mentioned him, man. He's 3-1 in the UFC, a powerhouse light heavyweight. I feel like he's one of the guys that could break out in 2022. Coming off that Alonzo Menifil win, when can we see him back in the octagon?
Man, he's ready to jump back in there, and he wants to fight in February. So, the UFC knows that. So we'll see what pans out, and he's just staying ready. And when the call comes, there's not too many guys. I don't know if any. He's not gonna say no to anybody. So, it'll be interesting to see who we get next. We had some guys in mind, but the UFC is always gonna have their plan too. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's good to see him. He works hard. He's got a bunch of kids. He's a good dad. He's taking care of his kids all the time. Every time I call him, his kids in the background. So it's, as a fellow father, it's good to see him making like an impact in his family's life. He's finally, he's on that next contract, making more money, all that stuff. Obviously, you can always want more money, but, I think 3 years ago and he was fighting local pay and, would he ever make it? Who knows? And now he's on a second UFC contract and he's 3-1 in the UFC. And he looked great in that last fight. So I was really proud of him, just the way he gutted it out and just kept pushing. He probably won the fight with that last little burst and 20 seconds left in the fight.
Yeah, big potential with him. And, when that fight was over, a lot of people are like, what direction does William Knight go? Does he face off against a veteran now, like a Khalil Roundtree or a Tyson Pedro, or does he go in a different direction? What is the team looking at?
Yeah, I think we just got to, I think it was said best is like, we're going to get paid, but at our contract states we're getting paid. It doesn't have to do with the big names or anything like that. And so, obviously you have to fight someone who makes sense, probably, someone, we're going to get someone with more experience at this point, you're 3-1 in the UFC, you just beat Alonzo Menifil, who's got some good wins. And, so, you're going to fight someone a little bit like kind of that next tier up, probably like a little bit, other guys like Alonzo Menifil, because Alonzo Menifil was a tier step up for him, going into this one, and he took the fight on shortish notice. It was a little bit of a risk. So probably another guy like kind of in that ballpark, like not in the top 15, but a guy who shows potential, So I'm excited to see who we get next, and, excited to see him perform. He's been changing up a couple of things in training. This time he brought in a All-American wrestler to do camp with him, and I think that showed that, he was able to kind of, he had a clean shot at the beginning. He did get rolled through, but, that was something that he was a little bit more hesitant to do in the past. And so it's good to see him making gains like this late in his career. He's got a very young, he's 33? I think he's 33, but, he's only been in the game for like 3 or 4 years. So he's still very, very green when it comes to experience, but he's making those changes now, and it's having good effects in the fight.
Another light heavyweight on the roster is Mike Rodriguez. We haven't seen him since last September. What is the status at the moment with him?
Yeah, so he's not on the roster anymore. So right now he did get released after his last fight. I think that they had announced that a few months ago, but I know it's hard to keep up with those things. But right now he's just getting his affairs in order. He's kind of just doing himself right now, taking a break. He's fight camp to fight camp to fight camp. So he's taking a little break. I know he went down to the Dominican with his family for a little bit, had some fun down there. Now he's just he's back in the gym doing some privates and stuff like that. And we should have some idea of what direction he wants to go in here in a little bit, and then we'll figure out what that is, and then we'll kind of take our next move.
A guy that I'm waiting for him to make his UFC debut, Carlos the Cannon. He earned his contract last August. When will we see him, man, make his promotional debut?
So we actually did have a fight booked. It hadn't gone public yet, but then an injury occurred, and we had to postpone. So right now we're just in that, I want to say rehab, because we're not rehabbing, but we're in that like get healthy mode. He is in the gym, he's doing what he can, but we're just kind of heal up a little bit, and then hopefully he'll be making his debut in first quarter of 2022.
All right, now let's get into the bigger names. The guys that you work with much closer. Rob Font, man, he's coming off that huge war with Jose Aldo. I heard he had some issues with the eye. Could we get an update on his health?
Yeah, so he just I think it was that big punch that he got at the end of the first round, the one that probably like 30 seconds left, that dropped him a little bit. I think it was just a slight fracture in the orbital, like no surgery needed. You just got to rest it. Nothing serious, no lingering effects or anything like that. Now he just needs to rest. So unfortunate. You never want to see anybody, break anything. But as far as breaks go, it's probably the best case scenario where there's no surgery needed and it's just going to be time. So, and it didn't affect his eye or his vision or anything like that. So, good that that's all it was. Unfortunate that it happened, because I think that one punch changed the whole trajectory of the fight. But yeah, Rob's a beast, man. He's an OG. He'll be back, and he's just gonna take the time that he needs to heal, and then we'll be back fighting another killer.
No, definitely. And I think a lot of fans don't realize or respect, that one shot can change the trajectory of the fight, like especially in the early rounds, man. And what did Rob say after the fight about that punch?
He just said, like, he was in it, mentally he was there, all that, but you just get rocked. You get hit with that punch that you don't see coming, and then you're kind of rocked, and you're just trying to like, oh, slow down. You get what's about you. He came out in the second round. You saw he started putting it on him again in the second round, and then he got hit a little bit. I think the way he described it was like everything everything was just heavier after that. Like every little shot he hit me with felt heavier. And then obviously you got the swollen eye, and you were a little rocked, and then it's harder. Your vision isn't as acute as you'd like it to be, and now that leads you to getting hit with more shots that you don't see coming, and those are always the ones that kind of like stagger you, because if you go back and watch the fight, it looks like he was like off balance a few times, and it was just more like he was getting hit when he didn't see it coming, and then he was like off balance and trying to like get his bearings about him. And it was a good learning experience for him to go through that with one of the best that's ever done it, and still be able to kind of keep his wits about him and recover and stay safe. But yeah, it's just once that big shot landed, it was everything else like just was heavier. It's just a shot that wouldn't have hurt him if that big shot didn't land. Now kind of moved him a little bit, and it's tough for people that have never been through that don't understand. It's like go outside and go kick a kickball, right? But now go do 5 dizzy bats where you stand on the bat and do a spin around and then try to kick it. And it's kind of like that, maybe not to that extreme sometimes, but now you're trying to be this severe athlete and you're a little bit off, your balance isn't quite there, and it has an effect. And but until you've really been through it, it's hard to describe and hard to understand.
Yes, definitely. And what is the plans for Rob for the next couple of months? He's healing, but I'm pretty sure he's training what he can train.
Yeah. No, Rob's always, he's in the gym today. We're getting Calvin ready for his fight, so he's in the gym today working on some stuff with Cal. Right now, really, the whole focus is on him healing, and then focusing on January 15th for Calvin. So we're not much thinking about what's next for Rob. It's just only thing we can control right now is healing up the eye and the bumps and bruises that we got, and then getting back into the gym when he's cleared to train full time, and then we'll see what's available, because the division at the top is so murky right now. So who knows who's going to be available, and you're one injury away from getting offered a title shot again. So who knows, So I think right now, no crystal ball or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in there this summer.
Just recently, Sean O'Malley said that he's looking to either fight Rob Font or Pedro Munoz next. Does that fight make any sense for your guy?
Who knows by next, like I said, the division's so murky. Next summer, who knows what the division looks like? Maybe O'Malley fights again before that and then earns a shot against a top 5 guy. Who knows? That's not, at the end of the day, that's not necessarily up to us to figure out, but, that's, we'll see what the division looks like when it gets there, and we'll see if it makes sense. I really think that it's a good matchup for Rob. I think, Sean's shown that he's very good. He's talented. It's an exciting fight. Obviously, he brings a big name value, and he has a good fan base. And, he's backing up a lot of things that he's saying. So kudos to him. And, hopefully he's getting paid. And, no ill will towards him at all. I think that Rob does match up good against him. I think we're a little bit more well-rounded. But it'd be an exciting fight for the fans to see. Of course, you go and you beat someone like Sean O'Malley, you're going to carry a lot of those fans over, hopefully.
Definitely. And, when I look at the division, I look at Rob, I'm looking at Corey Sandhagen. I'm looking at, another, former champ in Dominic Cruz. Those are the fights that I'm excited for Rob. Is that something that you guys lean towards more than, let's say, a Sean O'Malley?
Yeah, I think, it's tough because I think anybody looking at the rankings right now, the fight that makes sense is us and Sandhagen. He's coming off a short notice war with Hyon where he looked good. And then the fight before that, I thought you could have given him the nod on that. Watching it live, I thought he won, against TJ Dillashaw. So, no shame. Yeah, he's lost 2 in a row, but he's still a beast, So he's still a legitimate top 5. So I think a lot of people look at that and they say, well, Aldo and Sandhagen make sense. They're both coming off losses. They're both in the top 5. That's the fight to make. And you can't argue with that. But then it comes down to timelines. I know, maybe Corey wants some time off and we're going to have a little time off. So maybe it makes sense to have Font and Sandhagen in the summer, late spring, early summer type thing. And, the next guy's right back in the mix, whoever wins that fight. So we'll see, a lot can change in a week in this sport. So who knows? But yeah, ideally, you just want to just keep doing whatever gets us closest to a title shot. Because I think in that fight with Aldo, Rob showed that he's legitimately a top 5 fighter and on any given night can compete for a title. I don't think anybody can look at that fight and think that we got outclassed by any means or we didn't belong there. I think it's just a matter of when you get to that level and you're talking legitimate top 5 contenders, the branches are so thin. It's really whoever either makes the first mistake or whoever lands the bigger shot first can sometimes be the bigger difference. And I think if you go back and look at the Garbrandt fight, I think we landed the bigger shot first. Cody didn't necessarily make a mistake, but we just landed the bigger shot first, and then we were able to dictate the pace of the rest of the fight. And I think the same thing happened to us in the Aldo fight. We were doing really, really good, and then one shot changed everything. And then even then, you look at, I think we outlanded him more than 2-1 in terms of significant shots, and we broke his orbital as well. So it wasn't like it was a one. You look at 50-45, and you can be like, wow, that was a ass whooping, but it really wasn't. It was like, I think my sister Carrie Ann said it best. And if every round was 4.5 minutes, we won the fight. And, you go and do that to Jose Aldo, who looks like he's looking just as good as he did back in the day. You can hang your hat on that and take some, have some positive takeaways that lead to confidence moving forward.
Around the world, there are promotions that allow knees to a grounded opponent to the head. Do you feel like it'd be better for, say, commissions in the West to adopt that and not make it illegal anymore? The one hand on the ground, 2 hands on the ground, all of that.
I don't know. I've never really thought that was a dumb rule because I think, I don't mind it. I don't mind, protect the fighters a little bit. These guys, they're not. None of these guys, for the most part, none of these guys are retiring with a bunch of money in their account and set for life. So, unless you're gonna pay them a lot more to deal with the more severe consequence. Because, a knee to the head on the ground is going to hurt a lot more than a knee to the head standing, because there's nowhere for you to go depending on the thing. If your knee, you saw that one knee that he landed when Aljo's knee's on the ground, it has more of an impact. It's more of a jolt. Whereas when you're standing, you can kind of absorb it a little bit. And, and then there's the Anderson Silva, Rich Franklin knees those are unforgiving too. But I feel like it's a little bit harder to protect yourself in those positions. And, I don't see the need for that change. I think it's been the rule forever. That's how these guys have been training for 10, 20 years with it. You change that at the end, and maybe you start to see like people not as good as competent as defending themselves and stuff like that, especially if you're already in the UFC and then they change it or whatever. Whereas if you go over to the one, you're signing up for that, I'm not saying it would be the end of the world if they changed it, but I don't see the need for that change.
Now, the man that you guys are getting ready to fight coming up is Calvin Kattar. He's taking on Giga Chikadze, kicking off 2022 with a bang, man. How does Calvin look, on the home stretch of training camp?
He looks good, man. We were saying it yesterday. He's like on the tail end of like a 13-week camp. We've been at it, we've been in the gym, and over the holidays things get ill thin, with COVID, all that stuff. So we've been really keeping the group light. Like there's been like 3 or 4 days a week where it's me and him on the road, traveling to different gyms, just getting a lot of one-on-one time, and just the mental growth that he's had over the year. Calvin Kattar coming off a loss is different than Calvin Kattar coming off a win. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Ideally you'd be the same, but he's got that chip on his shoulder. He's dialed. He's always dialed in, but it's just that extra like aggressiveness that he has. Like he's, everything's revolved around just beating Giga Chikadze on the 15th. And, it's just fun to be back in fight camp with him. It's been a year, he took a year off. Before that we were in fight camps for like 3 years straight pretty much. And so it's good to have, it's almost like the boys are back together. We're training for another Calvin Kattar fight. And, it's nostalgic because I'm seeing all the memories come up on Instagram and Facebook about like us training for the fight last year. And it's like every holiday is not a holiday now. We're skipping all the holidays to train, and, and then kicking off the first fight card of the year again. So, I'm excited, man. He's put in the work. He looks great. He seems in a really good space mentally. And, I'm excited for how he's going to look on the 15th.
It's his third straight main event. It says a lot about him and how much the UFC holds him, in status. Another 5-rounder. What were the main differences in the preparation for this fight compared to, let's say, the other 5-rounders?
I think it was generally the same. It's just, this time we're fighting a heavy kicker. So obviously, we brought in people with similar backgrounds to Giga, or Chikadze, I don't say his name wrong. Giga. I always want to say his last name makes me want to say Chiga, but it's not. It's Giga. So apologies for that. But we brought in Ross Levine, who was like a 6-time world champion in karate. He's 2019 knockout of the year for Glory. He's an undefeated kickboxer. He's Karate Combat's Rookie of the Year last year. A little bigger than Giga. He fights at 170 and 185. But man, the freaking kid's quick. Just that look, where the angle, where the kicks are coming from, how they set up their kicks. It's been a really cool camp, being able to pick Ross's brain about how they set things up and how he comes at it. Obviously he'll say it, many times, I'm not Giga, but this is what I think, this is what I do. This is what I like to do. And, just getting someone's mindset on striking coming from that background versus a traditional boxing or MMA background. It's good to have him as part of the camp, and then giving us that, he studied film on Giga and giving us those looks and stuff like that. So I think that's the only major difference that we've had is bringing in him. But other than that, it's business as usual. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Obviously we're coming off a loss, so there were things that were broken, but you also got to put it into perspective. As we were fighting Max Holloway, who's other than Jose Aldo, he's the other greatest 145 pounder of all time in the arguments. And I don't know if you've ever seen someone like Max look better than he looked that night. It was like he was in the Matrix. He was making good reads. He was just in the flow state, and it was impressive to see. Unfortunately, it was at our expense. But so it's like it just wasn't our night that night. But we did see some things that night that he was able to expose for our skill set and our game plan, and our team in general. And for the last year, we've been able to try to like fill those holes and really like work on some of the weaknesses and bring those up, and then even sharpen the weapons that we already had.
When you mentioned Max, and him being in the matrix and him just being in that flow state, and you watch that, you say it is at your expense, but you get to experience the cage side, and then you get to take that and maybe turn it into motivation and tell Calvin, you will have your moments just like that. You know what I mean? When you're in the flow state, when you can't, you're making them miss everything and you're hitting everything.
Yeah, I think it's hard to you don't know that level until you feel it, and then when you feel it, and then you touch it, and then you're like, okay, like I get it, and that can either break you or it can motivate you, and that's in any sport, right? You go up and the first time you go into the big leagues and you feel the pace is different, and then you can either cower or you can be like, okay, I'm gonna get better, and Calvin's one of those guys who can do the latter. He's gonna get better, and he felt that. I don't think there's anyone that's ever fought a fight at 145 that can say they've ever been in there with someone that performed like Max did that night. I truly believe that. Like, I've been cage sides for thousands of fights, and what we witnessed that night, like, it was remarkable. Like, and from a fan, I appreciate it, and from a coach, I appreciate it, and as an athlete, you have to appreciate it. And I think Calvin got to feel that for 5 rounds. And on top of that, it's like Calvin, he's upset about how he performed. So he's like, here's Max in the Matrix, and I'm over here underperforming to my standards. And it's like, all right, well, I still went 5 rounds, and I'll build off that. And that's what he's done the last year. He's used that as motivation to like, all right, I need to do this, and this, and I'm going to get better. And I felt that, and now I'm going to go feel it again. And, you get that rub. And, hopefully we can show next month that rub paid off.
What do you think of Volkanovski's theory about why Max is not rushing to take that third fight? He said basically that Holloway's legacy, he could be losing part of that by losing to the same guy 3 times.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it. I mean, it could just be posturing. Who knows? I'm not. Volkanovski's not necessarily a trash talker. It doesn't seem. I think maybe he's just that's how he feels on it. I don't see how it would ruin anyone's legacy. Like, you lose to someone twice. What's the difference between losing twice and losing 3 times? Other than, you could argue that he won the second one, right? You could say, well, it's really 1-1. Let's go see the third one type thing. Who knows why? And maybe it's not even Max. There's always like what you see in the headlines and what's going on behind the scenes, and they're two very different things generally. So maybe Max is begging for the fight and they just won't give it to him, but he's not a guy who talks crap openly, and he's just going to kind of sit and wait. And, I'm sure he wasn't thrilled about having to go back and fight Yair after the performance he had against us. So, who knows? It's hard to speculate on that because, like I said, generally what you're seeing happen in the headlines and what's happening behind the scenes are two very different things. So I don't know, man. Max probably just getting paid well for these other fights, probably. And, he'll go get the belt, or, go and try to get the belt when the UFC thinks it makes sense.
Yeah, you know better than anyone about all the things that happen behind the scenes and what's in the media, right?
Yeah, you guys don't see a lot of it.
The division, it's kind of uncertain, after Max. Ortega just lost to Volk. Rodriguez just lost to Max. The Korean Zombie's injured, and Calvin sits right there at number 5. It looks like Giga's looking at this as a title eliminator. Does your team look at it as that as well?
No, we don't. Honestly, we never really look past this fight. We don't talk about the next fight going into the fight. Like, I'll obviously, as the coach or the manager or whatever, I'll do a little research ahead of time if like, depending on how their performance goes, it makes sense to call someone out or whatever. But for the most part, like, we just need to beat Giga. None of the next fight doesn't matter. It's only thing that matters right now is winning on January 15th and then letting the cards fall how they fall. Because if you start thinking past Giga, which, he's shown that he's an opponent that you can't look past. He's a dangerous guy. I think he's 7-0 in the UFC for a reason. We gotta get past Giga before we can even think about anything else.
All right. One last question, man. Put on your management hat now. Eagle FC is entering the U.S. market, with Khabib at the helm, right? This draws a lot of attention to the promotion. How does this organization putting on shows on, U.S. soil impact the landscape of the sport stateside?
I think it gives more, like, definitely one thing is like people that are released from the UFC have somewhere else to go other than Bellator or the PFL to make UFC level money. I hear the entry level pays for like guys like that is still like roughly what entry level pay is for the UFC. So you can still go somewhere else and make a little bit of money. To be determined how it really affects things long term, but it's definitely making some noise. It's tough because obviously it's Khabib, so they're going to be tied into that management group, and that whole thing's going to run it. But we'll see how that works out. If they're going to sign a bunch of other guys, or is this going to be like that management group versus everybody else, every card, and we're brought in to be lambs to slaughter type thing. So we'll see. I think you just got to be choosy with what fights you take and only bring the right guys over there, because anytime something's new is a little bit of element of risk. So half the time you sign up for new promotion and they never happen. And I'm not saying that'll happen with Eagle, but we'll see how it works out. Hopefully they flourish, because competition is good for everybody. These fighters, even after they go to the UFC, if they get released, they deserve to still be making good money. And hopefully Eagle FC can provide that and give these guys a place to go, either to get to the UFC or a place to go and make good money after they go to the UFC.
Completely agree. Tyson, appreciate you taking a big chunk of your time during a hectic training camp to speak with me. Good luck on the rest of the camp, and good luck on January 15th, I believe. Yes, January 15th.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.